Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the C-Man, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the C-Man's Cinema Sit-Down. First and foremost, shout out to my moms for hooking me up with my headgear that I'm wearing. As my hair's been getting longer, I've been I have a couple bandanas sometimes I'll throw on when I'm around the house. And my mom found a few of my sister's old bandanas that kind of double. You can kind of scrunch them up so that they look like a bandana, or if this one kind of functions like a sleeve. That happened accidentally last night coming out of the movie theater, but I kind of dig it, and I like just having, being able to wear or own things that were my sister's. So that's a cool shout out for this video because that's a little new for me. But now we got to turn our attention to a movie that stars my favorite actor to ever walk this earth. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat? We are getting ready to dive in, spoiler free, into the Equalizer 3. And yes, I'm behind. It's Tuesday following the Labor Day weekend, and I gotta tell you, I was kind of busy. I had things going on Saturday after work, then on Sunday after work, and then yesterday after work. Very rarely do I ever have three things with three separate groups of people lined up for a long weekend, mixed in with working on all 3 days, ironically enough. My holiday weekend starts today. But I was really pumped to see that the Equalizer 3 made $42 million over the holiday weekend, and the 4-day total is the second highest Labor Day weekend ever, and that was so exciting for me because, like I said, I'm a massive Denzel fan, huge Antoine Fuqua fan, and I said walking out of the theater last night, I was like, you give me those two guys and you put them together, individually, I'm always interested. When they're together, I will do whatever I got to see what they're doing, because they do create some magic. And, with the strikes, you couldn't have anybody really doing any press or marketing, and the marketing for Equalizer 3 was really small. But that is the power of Denzel Washington, man. People know what you're getting every time he steps on screen. And when he steps on screen as Robert McCall, he's always going to command an audience. So I was very happy to see a solid box office weekend for the Equalizer 3. And then when I finally got to the Equalizer 3 last night, I was very happy with the movie. I really enjoy this trilogy, and I always, it's weird because people will. I've seen this on Twitter recently with a bunch of memes, like John Wick versus Robert McCall, who wins? And look, my immediate gut reaction when I see that is John Wick, man, and he's Baba Yaga. However, Robert McCall, not quite J-Dub, right? John is very good with a gun. As is McCall. I mean, weaponry in general for both of them, they're both very good at, and McCall's really good at thinking on the fly and coming up with things, specifically in Equalizer 2. But it's one of those things where it's John is, very, very physical. You're doing all sorts of jumps, kicks, rolls. The action is built differently than they are built here. But the thing that I like about McCall, and something that, Fuqua really taps into in this movie, is the fact that he's kind of like a ghost, man. If you got Baba Yaga over here, you don't even see McCall coming a lot of the times. And that was something that I thought built, from an action standpoint, worked really well in tandem with the story that we're getting here from writers Richard Wenk, Michael Sloan, and Richard Lindheim for Fuqua and Denzel to play with. And the thing that I dig about the script, and we'll start there, is that it's kind of simple. In the past, we've seen something happen that kind of starts Robert on, whatever mission or path he's on, right? And this one, we're thrown into the middle of whatever that is as it's happening. The opening sequence was fantastic. And then how Fuqua ultimately reconciles with what happens there, I thought was really, really clever. But then after you get out of that scene, it's just McCall living in this small town in Sicily because he gets injured on his way out of that opening sequence. So while he's building his health back up, he's taken care of by the town doctor Enzo, who in this town is the greatest human being ever. And as McCall's there over the course of time healing and interacting with people, they kind of take him in as his own. And that was something that I thought was really cool with this movie, was it kind of had Training Day vibes at times, just on the inverse, right? Where in Training Day, Denzel has scared the community into doing whatever it is he needs as one of the most evil bad cops of all time. And ultimately that ends up backfiring on him. But here, the town, as he's there and he interacts, kind of rally around him and accept him as one of their own. So there's like a moment in the movie that kind of gave me Training Day vibes, but it was like the inverse, which I thought was really, really cool. And like I said, they kind of kept it from a story standpoint simplistic in the sense that McCall's just now living in this little town and things start happening. And when things start happening, he gets involved. And those things do in some ways tie back to what's going on in the open. But it's a fairly simple thing. And then, they're able to play with some things that I think Fuqua, from the directing side, really make pop down the backstretch of the movie. When it comes to the directing, I love Antoine Fuqua. This guy, I fell in love with him when he did Training Day. Training Day is a top 5 all-time movie for me. It's my favorite Denzel performance ever. My mother always rips on me for that because he's so bad, and Denzel is typically a good guy. But it's just one of those where, for me, it's one of his most captivating performances, and he literally, I don't think there's ever been a dirtier cop than Denzel in Training Day. And I've just always loved the range to what Denzel can do. And getting to see him kind of play a bad guy was something I really loved, and something I thought was like really unique and fun to play with how Fuqua handles things. And then as you go, I just love everything that he does. He's got a real gritty sense to the way he shoots things, and his action sequences, specifically in the Equalizer, are always really dope. When these two team up for this franchise, I always get pumped to see what we're going to do with the stopwatch. How many seconds does somebody have to live? How long is it going to take? How you play with the stopwatch here, I thought worked really well. That opening sequence obviously utilizes some of that, and it is one of the... I don't know if there was any one individual sequence that quite made me go, oh my god, as much as that opening. But there's a moment in there, man, where like something happens that was teased in the previews, and the full execution of that was more than I saw coming. And I just sat there, I was like, oh, Robbie's back, baby. I love when Robert McCall's back. But the other thing that I thought was cool, too, that Fuqua kind of is able to play with throughout the movie, outside of the action, which is always stellar. And like I said, in this movie, even more so, sometimes you don't always see what McCall is doing. You see the aftermath, or you kind of just see the footsteps or the shadows. The way he kind of plays with him as a ghost in certain scenes was really, really cool. But the other thing that I love here is, look, you got a Denzel who's getting up there in age, and because of the injury, Fuqua is kind of able to play with Denzel in certain moments like an older man. Robert McCall is obviously dealing with all of that on his own, being that he is aging. But because of the injury, you can kind of dial it up a lot more, which in some ways I was like, oh man, I don't want old man Denzel. But it makes the third act, when he's, coming back and fully healed, and you see him healing throughout the course of the movie, that kind of plays into that concept without having to have discussions or, have moments where people are talking to McCall about being old. You're kind of just able to physically see what he's going through and how that plays into his journey. And yeah, everything that you get from Fuqua here, it's a very methodical paced movie, but it's something that I think works very well for the story that he's telling. And I just like how he lures you into moments, and then all of a sudden it's pop, 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 Robert's doing stuff. And like, again, how he ties into this community in particular, I really, really dug. And then for me, in this movie, the special sauce, you get Dakota Fanning back, working with Denzel. Man on Fire is another one of my all-time favorite Denzel movies. And, Dakota Fanning was a little kid in that. Someone that Denzel's looking after, has to save. And here, she's all grown up, as we know. She's a CIA agent that, McCall kind of reaches out to in conjunction to what happens in the opening sequence. And that's how she kind of gets pulled in. And getting to see the two of them work together and bounce off of each other now that Fanning is grown, there was just something magical about it every time they were on camera. And it was like, you could almost see it in their acting and in their body language. Like, being back on camera together after all this time was something that the two of them, I think, really dug. There's some really nice moments where Denzel kind of just like gives her like a look or like a little sly smile, and you're like, it's that connection that came from Man on Fire. So I thought all that stuff was really cool. And then as far as how they utilize Fanning inside of McCall's story, I really liked what Fuqua and the writing team had going on here. And then when it comes to the performances, I mean, you're getting everything you expect from Denzel. And like I said, I think the way that he carries himself through the movie, how he kind of, because of the injury, is able to play up some of the aging elements, but like one of those, as he gets healed, he's like, oh, no, I can still do this. And he can still do it really, really well. And like I said, I love the way that he plays in with the people in the town, specifically Remo Girone, who plays Enzo. I love all of their interactions and the conversations that he has with Enzo throughout the movie. Like, are really interesting things for what Robert's dealing with, although he goes by Roberto because he's in Italy. So seeing what Roberto is going through in the movie, Enzo becomes like a nice bounce off point for him. And then the other one in town that I really enjoy him bouncing off of is a woman named Amina who works at the like little breakfast cafe shop in town. She's played by Gaia Scodelario. And same thing, there's kind of like a just this like, I mean, you know how it is with McCall. Like, he's always looking out for younger women, and certainly women that get battered. That's something that's kind of present all the time with him. And there is, you know, not directly, but there are things that like line up with why he would get involved in some of the things he gets involved in. But his relationship with Amina and just their back and forths when he's having his tea in the morning are just really, really great. And that's some of the stuff that I love watching Denzel do. And then when he flips that switch, man, Denzel still got it. And he's very good in the action sequences, the choreography, where they utilize him. It like, I sat there and I was like, after Equalizer 2, I didn't necessarily feel like we were going to get an Equalizer 3. But then when it was coming out, I was like, heck yeah, sign me up for more Robert McCall. And honestly, by the end of this one, I'm like, yo, you can give me an Equalizer 4 right now. Like, I'm fired up. And a lot of that has to do with what Denzel's doing. Obviously, like I said, his relationship and his chemistry with Dakota Fanning really, really pops on screen. And she's great. I really liked how her character worked. And again, most of it's the back and forths with Washington that I like the most. But what you do for Emma Collins as a character, I thought really worked, being tied to the CIA and kind of how you're able to help get resolution to everything that's going on. So it was really nice to see her on screen. David Denman, who plays Frank Conroy, who's kind of, I think, Emma's boss, or at least someone that she works in conjunction with. Really, really solid. He's always good when he pops up on a supporting side. As I said, Remo Girone and Gaia Scodelario, I really enjoyed both of them. Remo specifically, probably the most out of anybody that isn't Washington and Fanning. His performance as Enzo, it's so genuine and it's so heartfelt, and you understand why the town loves this man, and why, because he is looking out for Robert in certain ways, the town kind of starts to feel and accept and embrace, you know, McCall into the town. But then, like, things that go on with Enzo because of that stature and status that he has in town create some really cool things down the back end of the movie. And just about anybody that kind of pops up in and around the town, which also includes Eugenio Mastrandria, who plays Gio. He's the person who kind of finds Robert and brings him to Enzo. Again, where he lies inside of the community. And with Robert, I thought all that stuff worked really, really well, and it includes nice driving motivations and factors that go into Robert's story. You know, same with Daniel Perrone, who plays Angelo. There's some nice little beats for him in there that, again, like, kind of work in the world building of this town, and like why McCall will go to the lengths that he does at certain times. Same with Zachariah Hamza, who plays Khalid. And then you've got Andrea Scarduzio, who plays Vincent Quaranta. He's basically the head of this, like, mafioso type group, and he's, you know, funneling drugs through this town. And that's, like, who he's going after for the majority of the movie. There is a brother, played by Andrea Dodaro, Marco Quaranta, Vincent's brother. I love what you get with him. He's, like, one of those, like, as soon as he pops up on screen, you're just like, oh, I'm going to enjoy watching Robert McCall kill that guy so much. And what you ultimately end up getting with Andrea as Vincent, I think builds really well in tandem to Marco's story. And, again, how McCall handles business there, really, really cool stuff, and I enjoyed what you get from Andrea in response. Like I said, there's some interesting things that Fuqua's doing that kind of harken back to some other things that he's done, where I was like, yo, that's kind of cool. And I thought Andrea Scarduzio and Andrea crazy to have guys playing brothers that are both named Andrea Dodaro. I thought they did some kind of cool stuff as brothers, and how the thugs and stuff kind of work in, and the people that are teed up for Robert to take out. Everybody did the job, and everything in it was super enjoyable for me. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up. This is another solid entry into the Equalizer franchise. This one I think I like a little bit more than 2. It's pretty close to how much I like 1. I loved seeing Denzel and Dakota Fanning back on screen together. I love this little Italian town and the people that are in it, and how that plays into the non-action violent areas of Robert McCall's life, and how Denzel just continues to be the man, dude. And like, the action here is really cool. I love how it's not just like hand-to-hand action choreography, man. Like, when McCall is in a room, it's violent, and the violence in this movie really worked for me as he was taking people out. Him and Antoine Fuqua, it's always magic when they get together, and what they stage here through the action sequences and build for McCall's story, I thought was really cool. And then on the writing side, what you get from Richard Wenk, Michael Sloan, and Richard Lindheim, I thought this was kind of like a real subtle Robert McCall story. Simple, not difficult, you know? You kind of see the result of one thing, he ends up in a place, and while he's there, has to take care of business for something else that comes up that's loosely tied to what's going on at the beginning. And it really all plays out really well. When you get to the end of the 3rd act, I was like, yes, we are back. I am here. I loved me some Equalizer. I'm going 4 out of 5 Sea Maniacs. I really dug this one. The pacing is definitely methodical, and you got to be in the mood for one of those, but I thought everything kind of worked in tandem really, really well. And what you get from an Equalizer movie, I thought really, really popped. So with the stuff that we've gotten this year in the action realm, this is definitely in that top tier of action films. I put it kind of like right there with Sisu. Like, it's right in that realm, and the action movies that have been in that realm this year have been very, very good. So 4 out of 5 Sea Maniacs for the Seaman. I'm going to shut up, flip it over to you. How big of a Denzel fan are you? How big of an Antoine Fuqua fan are you? How big of a fan are you when those two guys are together? And how much do you enjoy Robert McCall? Let me know what you're thinking as far as, the series in general, how this feels as a 3rd entry, bouncing off of the first 2. Where does it kind of land for you? What things were working or not working? And if you haven't seen it, are you an Equalizer fan? Is this on your to-do list? Maybe you also had a busy Labor Day weekend. Anything you got, man. Good, bad, indifferent on the Equalizer 3. Put it down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with Seaman anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions, you want to be here for my Ahsoka coverage. We got a new episode dropping tonight that I'm very excited about. You just want to show a little love to the old Seaman, because you dig the vibe. Well, hey, come join Sea Maniac Nation. You can do all those things simply by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time for the Sea Man Cinema Sit Down, I've been the Sea Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those Sea Man goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.